I remember the exact moment my old self died. I was sitting on my bedroom floor at 3 a.m., surrounded by journal pages, unable to answer the question, who am I? My career, relationships, religion, everything that I used to escape the noise of my mind felt empty. That terrifying void became the black hole I needed. It sucked me in and crushed me completely, leaving me without the identity I used to call me. But then, what's left? Who was I when I woke up? But first, why does identity demolition happen? Have you ever wondered why a spiritual awakening feels less like floating into enlightenment and more like your entire identity getting bulldozed overnight? Well, that's because, in a way, it is. Your brain has spent your entire life constructing a self, a collection of experiences, beliefs, and social conditioning that tells you who you are. But the moment you stop attaching to that identity, your brain starts dismantling it. Think of it like a controlled demolition. Carefully place charges around the foundation of your ego, primed to bring the whole thing down. Meet your brain's CEO of you, the default mode network, or DMN as I'll be referring to it. The DMN is the system in your brain responsible for your sense of self. It keeps track of your personal story. It reminds you that you're you and makes sure that little voice in your head never stops narrating your life. But when a spiritual awakening kicks in, that system starts to quiet down. And the moment your brain stops reinforcing your identity, you start feeling like you're disappearing. Ever looked in the mirror and felt like a stranger was staring back at you? That's not you losing yourself. That's your mind expanding past its old boundaries. You were never just you. Your entire life, you've been conditioned to believe you're separate. Separate from others. Separate from the world. Separate from something deeper. Your job, relationships, possessions, all extensions of this carefully constructed identity. Now, that self is getting revealed for what it always was. A construct. Most people think they're just losing interest in things, when in reality they're stepping into a full-blown identity collapse. They have no idea that this follows a pattern. They just assume they're spiraling into existential doom while everyone else carries on like nothing's happening. But this process has phases. If you understand where you are, it's like strapping on night vision goggles while everyone else stumbles around blind. Phase 1 is deconstruction. This is where everything starts cracking at the seams. Your job feels like an elaborate joke. Your relationships feel hollow. Your brain is dismantling everything you built your identity around, not as punishment, but because those parts were never really you to begin with. It's a purge of external conditioning disguised as a midlife crisis. I'm gonna be honest, it's also disorienting as hell. Your cognitive flexibility gets stretched to the limit, like trying to change clothes while skydiving. Is it possible? Well, sure, but is it also terrifying? Yeah, absolutely. Phase 2 is known as the void. This is where 80% of people abort the mission. Your old identity is gone, but a new one hasn't formed yet. You're floating in psychological no man's land, let's call it. This is the make or break moment. Most people panic and scramble to grab onto something solid, a new religion, a new relationship, a career shift, just to escape the emptiness. That's a bad move. This is just a rebranded version of your old self. If you can hold steady without forcing an identity too soon, the real transformation is going to begin. Phase 3 is authentic rebuilding. You're not becoming someone new, you're finally uncovering who you've always been. So how do you know if this is genuine awakening or just depression? Well, in awakening, you still brush your teeth, you pay the bills, and wonder why you care. In depression, even those basic things feel impossible. This isn't the end of your story, it's the part where you stop playing a role and start living as yourself. Once you strip away the identity you spent your whole life reinforcing, you don't just land smoothly into a new enlightened version of yourself. You land in nothingness. Nobody talks about this part because you can't sell it as a 5 steps to self-discovery course. You don't land gracefully into enlightenment. You free fall into nothingness, and the worst part, You can't even tell if you're falling or floating, and it's terrifying. Relationships strain because really, how do you explain to someone, I don't know who I am anymore, without them assuming you need a psych eval? Your old identity is gone and the new one is still buffering. And this is where most people panic. They claw for anything solid, an old habit, a familiar relationship, even if it's toxic, just to feel something real. Don't. That desperate grasping only drags you deeper into the void. Instead, learn to float in the emptiness. Your mind is under renovation, but your body anchors you in the present. Make somatic awareness your survival tool. Stand barefoot on the earth for 5 minutes each morning. Feel the ground and focus on your breath. Hold ice cubes when your anxiety spikes. It forces your body to stay in the moment. Cold showers when disassociation hits shock your system back online. The hardest part isn't just surviving this space, it's resisting the urge to fill it with recycled versions of your old self. The void isn't a mistake, it's pure potential. If you sit in it long enough, something new, something real will finally have space to emerge. Your inner world is collapsing. Your sense of self is dissolving, and yet life doesn't care. Bills still show up. Your kids still need dinner. Your partner still expects you to remember date night. There's no cosmic pause button while you figure out your existence. Welcome to the nightmare of awakening in the real world. The trick is dual existence. Think of it as running two operating systems at the same time. Your external self handles work, relationships, and responsibility, while your internal self is in full-scale demolition mode. If you don't separate the two, you'll either 1. Spiral into dysfunction by quitting your job, ghosting your friends, and or confusing your existential breakdown for divine insight. Don't do that. Or number 2, you're going to overshare and alienate everyone. You're going to start dropping deep spiritual revelations into office meetings or explaining to your spouse why your marriage suddenly feels meaningless. Neither of these things work, okay? Instead, you need psychological flexibility. Adapt to your shifting inner world while keeping your outer world stable. It's a balancing act, not a meltdown. Now here's how you do it. The first step is to create boundaries between your inner transformation and external life. Before work, take 5 minutes to mentally put on your functional self. Stand in front of a mirror, breathe, and say, this part of me knows how to function here. When you get home, remove the mask, change clothes, take a breath, and acknowledge, now I make space for my deeper self. This isn't about suppressing transformation, it's about managing it. Awakening isn't a sudden event, it's a process. And learning to function while falling apart, well, that's how you integrate it. The reality is it's a demolition job, and your shadow is the one holding the detonator. That anger you pretend doesn't exist, that guilt you stuff down every time you set boundaries, that weird intrusive thought that makes you wonder if you're actually a terrible person. Yeah, that's the stuff we're talking about. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you were taught to reject, the emotions that weren't acceptable, the desires you were told made you selfish, the instincts that got labeled as dangerous. And now that your old self is disintegrating, all those suppressed parts are storming out like ex-cons fresh out of prison, ready to make up for lost time. This is where most people screw up. They either A, pretend the shadow doesn't exist and shove everything back down, which works until it explodes in a self-sabotaging disaster, or B, they let the shadow take over, mistaking raw emotion for authenticity, thinking I'm just being real while torching their relationships and careers. Both of these things are mistakes. Shadow work isn't about indulging your darkest impulses, it's about owning them, understanding them, and directing their energy toward growth. Because here's the deal, what you suppress controls you. What you face, you integrate. So how do you do the work with your shadow instead of letting it wreck your life? Well, here's where to start. Radical journaling. None of that today I'm grateful for nonsense. Ask yourself, what do I hate about me? What do I envy in others? When did I learn to suppress this part of me? Write without filtering. Let that ugly truth come out. Do some mirror work. Stand in front of the mirror. Say the things you're afraid to admit. Watch how you react. Do you cringe? Do you feel disgusted? If so, good. That's where the work begins. And then have some parts dialogue. Imagine sitting across from your anger, fear, or guilt. Ask it, when did you first appear? What are you protecting me from? And you'll be surprised by the answers. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that once kept you safe, but now it's keeping you small. Nobody warns you about the loneliness tax and why awakening wrecks your relationships. You dive into self-discovery thinking it'll make life clearer, deeper, even better, but then you look around and realize half your relationships just don't fit anymore. Try having a casual chat when you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. You're experiencing a full-scale identity renovation, but everyone around you, they're still running the old software. The words coming out of your mouth might as well be written in hieroglyphics. This isn't just feeling a little misunderstood. This is existential isolation, the kind psychiatrist Stanislav Grof called a spiritual emergency. Your brain is literally rewiring its entire sense of self, but everyone else, they're still interacting with the you they remember, not the one you're becoming. I remember explaining my awakening to my best friend of 15 years. The guy, he literally knew everything about me. His response was a blank stare, a quick glance at his phone, then, "Man, did you catch the game last night?" That's when I realized something brutal. Not everyone is going to come with you. Your family thinks you're having a breakdown. Your friends are convinced you've joined some weird cult, and your therapist, they might be trying to label your awakening as disassociation because their clinical training doesn't have a checkbox for spiritual identity collapse. And here's where most people screw up. They overshare. They unload their cosmic realizations onto unprepared friends, expecting deep understanding, and instead, they get blank stares and slow steps backward. That's how you go from feeling lonely to full-blown exile. So what do? Well, you build a differentiated support network. Translation, stop expecting one person to meet all your needs. That college friend, they're perfect for grabbing a beer when you need a break from the existential chaos. Your therapist is good for processing the emotional fallout. That one weird cousin who had their own spiritual breakdown, they're the one you text at 3 a.m. when your identity is dissolving and they just text back, "Yeah, it happens." Find at least one person who gets it. Not someone who will try to fix you, but someone who recognizes the terrain and won't panic when you say, "I don't know who I am anymore." And when talking to the people who don't get it, drop the spiritual jargon. Instead of saying, "I'm experiencing ego death," say something along the lines of, "I'm going through a major shift in how I see myself." Create bridges with everyone, not walls. Yes, relationships will shift. Some will break, but the ones that survive, they'll be the real ones. So your old identity has been reduced to rubble. The void swallowed you whole, and now something new is trying to rise from the ashes. But this is where most people screw up. They panic. They slap together a shiny new spiritual identity to replace the old one. One that looks enlightened, peaceful, and wise, but is just as fake and just as rigid. They swap their corporate suits for mala beads, replace boardroom lingo with holding space and shadow integration, and convince themselves they've found their true self, but all they've done is trade one costume for another. So here's what's actually happening. Your brain is rewiring itself. Neuroplasticity is shifting your internal landscape, forming new neural pathways that support an emerging sense of who you really are. But this process only works if you stop forcing it. If you're trying to figure out your new self, you're doing it wrong. Your identity isn't a checklist, it's a river, always moving, always adapting. The moment you lock into "this is who I am now," you've missed the point. The goal isn't to replace one rigid identity with another, it's to learn to flow. So how do you rebuild authentically? First is values clarification. Strip away everything you were conditioned to care about and find what actually matters to you. Grab a pen, list every value you think is important. Honesty, success, freedom, spirituality. Then cross out the ones that were taught to you but don't feel true in your gut. Whatever's left, that's who you are. Next is narrative reframing. Your brain needs a way to make sense of your transformation. But be careful, don't turn it into some grand spiritual superhero story. Ask yourself, how has this changed my relationship with myself, with others, and with life itself? Find meaning that feels grounded, not performative. Psychological flexibility is the third thing. If you catch yourself clinging to a new self-definition, pause. Real growth means staying adaptable. You're not becoming someone, you're uncovering who you've always been underneath the noise. Do not go through this alone. Find people who see you as you are now, not just as who you used to be. Not everyone from your past will make it into your future, and that's okay. When you feel lost, breathe. Journal. Walk barefoot on the earth. At the core of awakening lies this beautiful paradox. Identity isn't something you achieve, it's something you outgrow, rebuild, and let evolve. Like Ram Dass said, we are all just walking each other home. No one has figured it out yet. We're all stumbling through this, shedding old versions of ourselves, learning to exist without clinging to a label. That night, sitting on my bedroom floor, drowning in the emptiness, I realized something. Freedom isn't in becoming someone, it's in finally letting go of needing to be anyone at all. Like the phoenix rising from ashes, I didn't step into a new me, I stepped into something fluid, something real. And that freedom, it's waiting for you too, the moment you stop forcing it. And if you want to see yourself in a different form, literally, well, here's your chance. I'm bringing people into my upcoming videos as animated characters. Click the link in the description, and let's bring your presence into this journey in a whole new way.